So the Warriors have made a second move here in the last 24 hours. Lester Quinones, two-way contract, was converted to a standard contract for the rest of the season. We talked about that earlier. My correction, a lot of y'all corrected me, was that was the 14th roster spot. My bad. My bad. Listen, we have left that 15th roster spot open for so long, I just haven't counted it. I'm like, well, they're going to leave that one. They do have another roster spot. But what they also had was an additional two-way roster spot because Quinones vacated his. And the news has just broken. They have signed Pat Spencer, who has been in Santa Cruz for the last 2 seasons. 27-year-old, 6'3", solid built, lacrosse star. He's a converted lacrosse player. Some of you may remember him. He's played in the summer league, and he even played in the preseason. He got a camp invite a season or two ago. This is going to sound funny, but if I were to give you a comp, I would compare Pat Spencer to Pat Connaughton. Not just because they're both named Pat and they're both white, but in style of play. They're relatively the same size, 6'3", 6'4", but they have a bigger built, and they're both big leapers off of 2 feet who play without the ball well, naturally cut without the ball well, rebound well, and play bigger than they are listed. That would be my Pat Spencer comp. The interesting thing was, you look at last year's numbers in Santa Cruz, he shot 20% from 3. This year, he is up to 43%. Now, I think he's had some injuries and he's dealing with some things, but you remember Kerr really loved him. And there was actual debate if he was going to get a roster spot over whoever got the roster spot last year. It's all a blur to me. But yeah, I don't mind Pat Spencer, the prospect, in a vacuum, right? He is 27 years old. I think that needs to be mentioned, but he is a very Warriors type of player. Again, plays without the ball, smart, shooting the 3 well, rebounds well. But it still feels like we've got a systemic problem here when it comes to guards and smaller players, right? What's up with my guy Garuba? What is Usman still like? A word is he blew up a team bathroom on a plane ride home. Haven't heard from him since. No, I'm kidding. But could he get a sniff? And I think you saw my reaction on Twitter maybe, and it's just like another guard, man. You know what it reminds me of? It's like the homie that's always in a relationship, right? But it's always a new girl. So whenever you see them, you don't say their names because you don't want to cross the names up, right? It's always a new chick, but it's always the same type of chick, right? It's always the same type of chick. In the Warriors, it's always the same type of player. Undersized, smart player. And again, I'm not hating on Pat Spencer. This is quite a journey to making an NBA roster. And I like him in a vacuum, but I don't necessarily like him for this roster. But I know some of you are going to push back and say, Alkit's a two-way spot. Who cares? Maybe so, right? But it just feels like, why not take, if it is just a two-way spot, who cares? Why not take a flyer on a bigger body? And I've talked about this a little bit in the past. The truth of the matter is, the G League, the bigger the player, the less likely they're good. Right? You can find these diamonds in the rough who are 6'3", 6'4", maybe 6'5" would be the cutoff. Once a guy is 6'7", 6'8", if he's been in the G League for a while, there's probably a reason for it. And it also, I think, coincides with my feeling about Kerr, and we've joked and not joked about him being obsessed and addicted to small ball, and talking about Kerr's type, right? And every coach has a type, just like every homie has a type. And I don't necessarily think that he likes small players. I think he likes super high IQ players with high motors, right? And so once you've put that in the filter system of players, you're eliminating big players a lot of the time, especially out of the G League. So, hey, I don't mind him. Think Pat Connaughton, but yeah, it's another guard. Anyway, I thought I would jump on and hit y'all with a second video because we're waiting for these games to start back up. Underdog Fantasy, patron, subscribe, like, hit all the buttons. I'm out, y'all.